The final zombies map for World at War was Der Riese. Based in Nazi Germany, this was the home of Group 935 and the centre of many of their creations, such as the Teleporters, the Undead, the Monkey Bomb, and Richthofen's Wunderwaffe DG2. So far on the channel we've taken a look at Nacht der Untoten, Verrückt and Shi No Numa, but now it's time to explore the forgotten storyline and Easter eggs of Der Riese. On February the 4th, 1931, large deposits of element 115 were discovered near Breslau, Germany. A German scientist named Dr. Ludwig Maxis was sent to investigate. After studying the element, Maxis decided to form Group 935, an experimental organisation which was dedicated into studying the element, and told his scientists that they represent the future of technological advancements and will be the pioneers of human discovery. The group swore to work in secrecy from their respective governments. As Maxis said, they couldn't afford to let this power fall into the wrong hands. So the Der Riese facility was set up, and Maxis then invited a German doctor, who was Edward Richthofen, to join Group 935. Richthofen agreed, however, he was acting secretly on behalf of the Illuminati's interests. Over the years while working at the facility in 1939, Maxis and Richthofen began teleportation experiments, but only ever to mild success. The subjects that they were using were teleported, but their chemical composition was altered, leaving them catatonic and changed. Using element 115, they managed to resurrect one of the teleported corpses, where it came back as a zombie. Initially, it obeyed their orders, but soon became rabid and attacked them, and so it was euthanized. During this time, Richthofen also began development of the Wunderwaffe DG2. By November the 3rd, Group 935 were running low on funding, forcing Maxis to turn to the Reichstag for additional fundraising. Germany agreed to their request, expressing interest in their weapons research, teleportation technology, and the reanimated undead subjects. Continuing their experiments, during Test Trial 151, Richthofen and Dr. Schuster successfully teleported a walnut. This was the first successful test where the chemical composition of the object was maintained throughout the process. But this test trial failed to impress Maxis, who declared it a waste of time. He revealed to Richthofen that Group 935 would soon be funded by Germany, and Richthofen worried that this would lead to mass defections. He and Dr. Schuster then decided to continue their teleportation experiments behind Maxis's back. On January the 4th, 1940, Richthofen and Schuster conducted their first human teleportation test. Richthofen, being so confident in its success, volunteered himself. Instead of teleporting straight back to the mainframe though, he was teleported to the moon, where he encountered the MPD, the Ether Pyramid hidden there by the Apothicons. While inspecting the device, Richthofen was electrocuted and began hearing the many voices of corruption, including that of the Shadow Man. Now corrupted by the Dark Ether, the device then teleported him to Shangri-La, where Richthofen was gradually driven insane by an obsession to find Agatha. While in the temples, he was worshipped by the natives, who decided to build an altar in his name, and after near a month of absence, Richthofen returned back to Der Riese, back to Schuster, with a plan to build Griffin Station on the moon. Richthofen then renounced his involvement with the Illuminati. When asked how he could abandon his obligation to the Order, he told them Teddy was a liar, and then in secrecy gathered other Group 935 scientists and asked them to join him on his journey to construct Griffin Station. A few months later, Maxis instructs his assistant Sophia to write a letter to the Reichstag High Command requesting additional funds, though he reports that mass production will soon be underway shortly. Der Riese lacked not only the funding, but significant volumes of element 115. Germany granted Maxis his request, and Group 935's research continued. A few years go by, where on January 30th, 1942, Richthofen completes the Wunderwaffe DG2, and with Griffin Station now complete, he names Dr. Schuster the lead scientist, and returns to Earth to continue his charade with Maxis. While working alongside Richthofen, Maxis begins to express concerns over element 115's impact on his behaviour. No longer trusting him, he wonders if it was a mistake to invite him to Group 935. Now, in between the next main events that happen at Der Riese, there are a few important things you need to know. The first one is on September the 1st, 1945, this was when Peter infiltrated Group 935. He first went to Der Riese and then was transferred to the Verrückt facility. Also around this time, Maxis was transferred to the Kino der Toten facility to work on Germany's undead army, and Richthofen was transferred to Group 935's Siberian facility, where he experimented on 4 prisoners of war. These were Takeo, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Pablo Marinas. Eventually, both scientists returned back to Der Riese. Richthofen brought with him his test subjects, who were Dempsey, Takeo and Nikolai. Pablo Marinas he left in Siberia because he killed him. But when they arrived back at Der Riese, infuriated to learn that Maxis had not been mass producing his Wunderwaffe DG2 as he swore he would, Richthofen, corrupted by the Dark Ether, revealed his plot to destroy Maxis and his daughter Samantha, vowing that he would no longer continue to work on his undead army. Groff then radios Richtofen from Griffin Station, informing him that the MPD is powered up and awaiting the conduit, and Richtofen replies to him that he will proceed with Operation Shield and dispose of Maxis and Samantha. On October the 13th, 1945, while continuing with their teleportation trials, though frustrated that the matter transference test had been largely unsuccessful, Maxis acknowledged that the test subject's departure from their original point of origin was undeniable. However, Richtofen's suggestion that the subjects had been transported not through space, but through time itself, causes Maxis to worry. He says Richtofen's irrationality may soon prove a liability to their endeavours. Maxis and Richtofen then performed teleportation test trials on test subjects number 3, 4 and 5, all fail, including test 5, where Maxis uses Samantha's dog Fluffy. As they proceed on to test 6, Samantha walks into the test chamber where she sees her father and Richtofen using Fluffy in their experiments, and so Samantha runs into the teleporter after her dog. Maxis then chases his daughter, and Richtofen seizes his perfect opportunity where he seals both of them into the test chamber and teleports all 3 of them away. Samantha was teleported to the moon, where she became trapped inside of the MPD, Maxis was teleported to the crazy place, and Fluffy was teleported to the dark ether. Realising what had gone on, Richtofen returned to Griffin Station, where he teleported Maxis from the crazy place to the moon and told him to coax Samantha out of the MPD. And so Maxis approaches the pyramid, he persuaded Samantha to come out, and once she does, he gave her instructions to kill everyone. Maxis then shoots himself, and Samantha runs back into the MPD, where she uses her newfound powers to unleash the zombies upon Group 935. Richtofen then quickly returns to Derice, where he awakens his test subjects, Takeo, Dempsey and Nikolai, and with no recollection of who they are because of their memory loss due to element 115, they agree to help Richtofen, where he would begin his grand scheme to defeat Samantha. And that's the story of Derice. Now, getting into the Easter eggs, remember this is the forgotten secrets, so we're going over the lesser known ones. However, Derice is an older map, it doesn't really have any big major Easter egg. You could say this is the first map that had a main Easter egg, although it doesn't really count. This was the Flytrap Easter egg, where you would basically play hide and seek with Samantha, but there are plenty of others, and of course because this was a World at War map, it was also playable on Black Ops 1. Because there was no theatre mode back then, it is very difficult to show you most of these. Anyway, on the roof of the Derice facility we can see 2 different words spelt out. The first one is SOS and the second is help. Around the map there are loads of different messages and notes, although they are very difficult to see. The first one reads, in the event of any critical failure, the player is instructed to take his cyanide capsule that's included in his field operations kit. In the event that the player has misplaced this, there are several methods that will accomplish the same task. For example, the test, and that is when the page ends. Another book which you can read that can be found outside of the map says, it is the responsibility of absolute secrecy. No one is to know what you do, where you work, what our research has uncovered, or what the purpose of it will be. You will have no further contact with your governments or your families. Your decisions to fully dedicate your lives to Group 935 is absolute. Attached is your field operations manual, which will direct you should our mission be compromised. We cannot afford to let this power fall into the wrong hands, and therefore the field operations manual should be considered your Bible. Make your preparations now, a new dawn is beginning for mankind. Dr. L. Maxis. This is pretty much the same message that you can hear on one of the radio transmissions. But moving on, the next note reads, side effects of using 115. The power is undeniable, but who can use such weapons without themselves turning? Another note says, the bees disappeared from Ludwigsdorf. I've probably pronounced that incorrectly, and I'm not too sure what this is or what it means. If you put Ludwigsdorf into Google Images, you can see pictures of the same landmark that you can find in Derice pictures, and in one of the pictures you can see a zombie in front of the Eiffel Tower. We do know that Paris was planned to be a zombies map, however it was scrapped, so maybe back in the day this was a hint towards that. But on this board we can actually see hints towards future zombies maps. We have Ascension, Kino der Toten, there's another one that I can't quite make out. So obviously these were maps that we would go on to get later on down the line, besides from Paris. In German, I'm going to attempt to pronounce this. There is the writing Die Glock ist Jets mobile. That was probably awful, but this translates to the bell is now mobile. There's more German writing that says, I'm just going to stop pronouncing it. It translates to follow the entire plan. Obviously, like most of our zombies maps, there are different ambient noises that you can hear. One of them is a girl crying, which we assume is Samantha. We can also hear children singing nursery rhymes, things like that we've come to expect in our zombies maps. A lot of them are pretty much the same sound effects that were used in previous maps such as Verrückt and Shi no Numa. In game, if you look up to the moon, the best way to see this is by using a sniper or if you no clip, but on the moon you can see multiple different orange dots, and what this is Griffin Station. As I mentioned in the story, this was the facility that was being built on the moon during this time, and in game we can actually see it's built. Those orange dots is the moon facility, you can see it from Earth. On one of the blackboards that you can find, there is a note that says, "Hey Gina, Edward, I know it was you." Of course, written by Harvey Yena. Since Der Riese was pretty much the headquarters of Group 935, this was where most of the scientists did their main research. You can find Dr. Maxis's office. During World at War Zombies, because, well, this was pretty much the beginning, this is where we got a lot of evolution for our perk machines. We were having new ones added, unlike Black Ops 4 Zombies or BO3 where we don't get any new perks. But one perk which we were supposed to have in Der Riese that was supposed to be new for this map, but was eventually scrapped, was called Ammo-matic. As you can guess by the name, it does what it says. You buy the perk and it replenishes your ammo. On one hand but we know he killed himself with a cyanide capsule, so this was probably a Group 935 employee that killed himself when the zombie outbreak happened. Instead of having the zombies kill him, he took his own life. On one of the other blackboards there is a note that reads, "To faithful servant, the seed has been planted. Observe and report, Maxis must not know." An Easter egg which is pretty common in zombies nowadays. We've seen it over time, not so much in the later CODs, but I believe, if I'm not wrong in saying, this was the first map where we ever saw the initials JD. Throughout Zombies these have become pretty famous. These are the initials of a developer, I believe, but you can find them in multiple locations on not only Der Riese but plenty of other maps as well. On the wall in the starting area we have some writing. It says, "Embrace the Trinity and true power will be yours." This is referring to the Pack-a-Punch machine, since Der Riese was the first map that we had it on. It's telling us to embrace the Trinity, link all 3 of the teleporters, and true power will be yours. We can access the Pack-a-Punch machine. There's also another note that reads, "Return through ether." An Easter egg that I do want to mention, it's to do with the Flytrap Easter egg, but it's pretty interesting on its own since this is the only map that you can witness this. But if you throw the monkey bomb into the furnace, it will begin to scream. And Samantha, since this is her monkey, she will get angry. And finally, a few other things. On the wall, you can find a paw print of a dog in blood. The only dog we know in our storyline is Fluffy, so this was hers. Why it's on the wall and in blood, I'm not sure. Possibly from when Maxis and Richtofen were using her in their experiments. And finally, a pretty popular one. Outside of the map, you can see the shadow of a teddy on the wall. And if you no clip or just look at this in game, you will notice that it's Samantha's teddy with a light behind. So that was the Forgotten Secrets of Der Riese. That's all for our Zombies maps from World at War. If you missed any of the previous episodes, you can check them out in the description below. With this series, I was only ever intended on covering the World at War maps since it's the Forgotten Secrets. They're not forgotten if they're newer. But if you do want to see me move on to Black Ops 1, starting with Kino der Toten, then you can let me know by leaving a like rating. Let's say 5,000 likes. If we can hit that, then I'll do it. Tell me in the comments section below what your favourite World at War map was. Click subscribe if you haven't already, turn on the notification icon, and I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, goodbye.